If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. And today we are at the penultimate episode of the Anglo-Saxon trials of England.
Yup. Yeah, we are. Soon the at least Saxon kings are done. I don't know about saying Anglo-Saxon England is, but
Well, even today, their blood is still in there a little bit.
yeah.
Very
Right.
diluted, but still there.
I mean, I guess you could say that. People like being all like, "Oh, I'm an Anglo-Saxon." Okay, good for you. I don't care. put on a helm and get a shield. Then I don't know.
Right. So, how do you feel about our journey almost coming to an end? It's been a long.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
And this is your time frame. This is where you're from. So anything past this part is spoiler alert for you.
Oh man, technically right now this is spoiler alerts for me. Holy shit. A Viking takes over England? What the hell? Oh god. The heathens.
Wait, weren't you still a heathen by then, or were you a good Christian?
I died a long time ago. And I was a Christian.
So you already been converted by then.
Yeah, I was a monk my whole life. What?
Alright. Speaking of monks and stuff, and Vikings, let's talk about today's topic.
Athelred and Canute.
The feuding. They shared a wife.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
Right.
Quite
Well, I did not know they had great color photography back then in England.
They had what?
Color photography.
This isn't England. As of it has been a year since Putin declared his quote unquote special military operation in Ukraine. These are photos from a couple of these are from the first day. I think the top left one's from the first or second day, and the bottom left is aftermath of the battles around Kyiv, and this is all Russian equipment. Like, look at Jesus. Woo. That's a lot of vehicles gone.
Yeah.
Actually, the top middle picture, one of the first was a photo taken from a live of the border checkpoints in Crimea. That dude is current running away as a bunch of tanks are coming at him. And that's one of the things people shared, and it's like, the war has begun. Oh shit.
Normally I'd say happy anniversary, but this isn't very happy.
No. I kind of wanted to talk a bit about the numbers if it will come up, and it does. Military casualties so far, probably around 200,000 casualties for Russia, and I can see probably similar for Ukraine. About 60,000 dead Russians. I don't know about Ukrainian dead. So that is a lot. The biggest loss it took Afghanistan. They only lost 15,000 troops during the entirety of a 10-year conflict in Afghanistan. So that's insane.
And they've lost how many in 1 year?
100,000 killed and wounded, 60,000 killed.
So they like tripled or quadrupled their whatever that.
Yeah. uh, well, I mean, when you move the most populated countries in Europe going at each other, it's going to be deadly. 799 Ukrainian civilians have been killed, while 11,756 have been injured. 8 million Ukrainians have fled the conflict. 5.3 are still in Ukraine, but have fled the combat zone. And it does. I thought it told me that the amount. Oh, here, 6,000 Ukrainian children have been taken to camp inside of Russia from Russian occupied territory. And did you know people out here saying that there's a? Oh, I got it from CBS News. But yeah, there are people currently out there right now saying that this war isn't happening because there isn't any war footage on the news on TV. I don't know what you want them to be showing you on TV. I've seen some of the war footage. I don't think that should be on the TV because it's gory
Yeah,
and not very nice.
yeah. That's how we learned about the Vietnam thing. TV, they TVized it over here in
Yeah,
America.
yeah. I mean, it's a bloody war. I've seen some pretty
What
terrible things, including things that have happened to children. So I don't think that should be on the news.
bloody
So
bloody war? Really? That wars aren't bloody. Wars aren't bloody.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know what these people want. Uh, yeah, of course. But in this climate, you don't want to have kids looking at like what I've seen. Okay, they have shown all of the blown up tanks and stuff. I think that's
I'm I'm
fine.
surprised at this point they don't have like a streaming service for war videos like Warflix or War Hulu.
Yeah, it's not like it not okay, but it's like these things aren't able to be found. I find them. I've found these videos. They're not that hard to find. You can literally find them of people literally dying and stuff and pretty bad photos. Just I don't know. I don't know what do you really want to have a 5-year-old see a 3-year-old autistic girl with her stomach eviscerated and her mom's
Me,
unattached foot right
me
next to her?
personally, no, but I've seen people bring a kindergartner to the Passion of the Christ movie back in 2000. So people do weird things.
Okay. Well, the war's not going to end until the Ukrainians want it to end. The Ukrainians are currently living it. So, um, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I want the war to end too. Russia, please go home.
yeah. So in a year, besides the death count, what's been the land thing? Have they got the land back by all the land back by now? Is Russia taking more land?
Well, Russia came in from 4 sides. They got bogged down. They were forced to leave Kiev. Um, Ukraine has actually taken back a lot of land. Currently, Ukraine back foot for a little bit. But because they're preparing for an offensive in a different area and they're just trying to stall Russian advances currently. Um, Ukraine is about to get a bunch of modern tanks that help them in an offensive to try to take back land, and really hope that this war is over soon and that Russia decides, let's leave.
Is there any chance any other country can get involved, or just 1-on-1? So me 1-on-1.
I don't think any other countries should get involved. That would just cause more death and suffering that
True.
doesn't need to happen. Um, Nukes. I don't like nukes. I don't want to be nuked.
Yes.
Do you want to be nuked?
Not personally, no.
Yeah, nuking no fun. I don't want to get so. I mean, this is Ukraine 1776. Let them fight it, but help them fight it, just like the French helped us fight our 1776.
But I guess speaking of countries invading other countries, let's talk about what happened 1,000 years ago. And he's okay. And he's back.
There are people that don't believe nukes exist. Wow, that's insane. Sorry. Okay, so last time we left off with a pretty powerful, and seemingly centralized English state around King Edgar. And Edgar wielded the state and the church effectively in order to solidify his power. However, he just so happened to decide that he didn't want to live past like 35 or something like that. So he died on the 8th of July 975. And they're both young. I'm pretty sure his first son is 13 or 14 and his second son is 8. Somewhere around 8. So this isn't good for the kingdom.
Is his second son okay?
Oh no, I might have to go onto my phone, but we'll just see if that happens.
I'm asking, was his second son from the second wife and the future king confessor person?
This is Edward the Confessor's grandpa. Actually,
okay.
Yeah. So as soon as Edgar dies, we see a bunch of noblemen try to take some power back. They'd lost a lot of power and land and wealth to the church, and now the church no longer had its chief benefactor, Edgar. So they were like, "Give me my land back." The Benedictine reformers saw this as, oh no. They saw them as anti-Christian and stuff. But of course, this is just a slander against their political opponents. As clearly, even the people trying to take their land back were they liked monasticism. They just didn't like their land taken away. So you have these two kids, and they're trying to figure out who's going to become the king. There are claims that the first son, who's named Edward the Martyr, his mom was just was a nun, I think. Oh no. Yes, rumors he was the son of a nun. So rumors that he was a bastard, essentially. So yeah.
Yeah. So wouldn't if the son of a nun, wouldn't that be like you think that'd be like a holy thing? It's a son of a religious figure. It's super holy.
super holy. But yeah, there were rumors that Edward the bastard, but he ends up becoming king anyway because he's the eldest. Um, and there doesn't seem to be a power struggle here. It seems fine, kind of. Uh, Later sources try to claim that Edward was cruel, along with the slander about the bastarddom thing, and in order to boost Athelred, who's the second son, to boost his credit. Eventually, on the 8th of March 979, Edward the Martyr was visiting Ethel, and he finally figure out why his name is Edward the Martyr. He dies. And this is why he's called the Martyr, because he dies. Well, kind of. There's claims that he was murdered by Athelred's Thanes. Thanes are like Anglo-Saxon knights. This is their names. Thanes. There's claims of that. We don't know. Something that might strengthen the idea that Edward was murdered by Athelred's supporters is that he venerated his brother when he came to power, and gave him a feast and everything. Kind of is like, oh no, I'm sorry that I murdered you.
Like, whoever killed my brother is in big trouble. I'm not honoring him. But now that I'm king, Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Athelred becomes king. His mother was a consecrated queen, so he's seen as more legitimate. And later writers also say that he was gentle and kind, unlike his brother. So now we have Athelred in the next slide. Athelred's reign is seen as a low point for Anglo-Saxon England, mostly because we know the outcome of his reign. He eventually loses power to a foreign monarch that takes control of England. So a lot of sources essentially are like, "Oh my God, Athelred sucks. Athelred sucks." It's quite possible that Athelred was already was dealing with just normal court politics, and because he was so young, he was chafing against this political system that wasn't of his own. And these people at court had deep-rooted interests that they didn't give up. So, of course, there's multiple conflicts during his reign in which the king and his nobles do not agree, and it comes to dominate his later reign that this will eventually hurt England's ability to fight back against the Viking threat. Early on in his reign, Bishop Athelwold and his mother at the center of his power structure. Of course, he's not ruling on his own because he's too young. He doesn't take his full power until 985. And in 985, he starts utilizing this power by siding with one of the there are two factions. One seems to be centered in the south, and the other seems to be centered in the north. That's another thing we talked about last time. The north, while it was now part of England, wasn't necessarily fully integrated into the system, and the north and the south seem to have their own factions. At first, he sides with the southern faction, and he begins seizing land and redistributing it to his allies in order to try to shore up his position and make it so that he can start to reign more like his father Edgar and have this centralized state. However, it looks like the other faction was not very happy with that. The other faction is led by Ealdorman Athelweard.
You mean he didn't
Who
want to
is
share the power? They didn't want to share the power.
Well, they weren't really sharing the power; they were losing power, and it was being to other people. So, but the Ealdorman of Northumbria, essentially in 993, is able to have a palace coup against the other faction, which was led by the Ealdorman of Hampshire, Alfrich. Hampshire is essentially the heartland of the old kingdom of Wessex. By the way, that's where Winchester is. So in 993, the Northumbrian party, as I will call them, takes power and enforces Athelred to take back all of the land that he took and gave it back to the people he took it from. In orders that said, "Sorry, I acted unjustly. It was because I got guys. It's not because of me. It was because I got bad advice." And this is actually the reason why he gets his name, because if you know anything about Athelred, his name is Ethelred the Unready.
Yeah, be honest, I did not realize Northumbrian was still a major player at this point in the game.
Yeah, it's its own Ealdorman. It's its own. I forgot what it. It's its own province. So yeah,
So it's not like not its own.
It's not broken south. It's not a kingdom, but it's not broken up like the south.
Okay.
Ethelred is known as Ethelred the Unready. In modern English, Ethelred the Unready makes it sound like, oh shit, he was ready for what comes later in his reign. It's actually a play on his name in Old English. Athelred means noble counsel. Unready comes from Unrad, which means ill-counseled. And it's probably because in a bunch of charters he was saying, "Hey, guys, it's not my fault. It's because I had bad counsel. I'm sorry, guys. Please don't hurt me."
So his old counsel was bad.
Yeah, my old counsel is bad. My new counsel are my buddies. Please don't hurt me.
Did they listen?
Well, we'll see in the next slide.
All right. Coming up.
In 980, a major thing happens. For a long time, Viking raids were still happening, but they were not big enough for the Anglo-Saxon chronicles to accord. But in 980, Southampton was sacked. And this is the beginning of just relentless Viking attacks. You have one that's Cornwall and Devon in 981, Portland, Watchet, a bunch of different coastal cities are sacked throughout this period. In 991, Olaf Tryggvason, who later becomes king of Norway, and Svein Forkbeard, who for later remember his name, lead a Viking army, and he is met by the Ealdorman of Essex, whose name is Burtnoth. It's a kind of famous battle. There's a poem about it. It's called the Battle of Malden. The English lose in this battle, and the Ealdorman of Essex is killed. But the Vikings also took heavy casualties. Athelred was forced to pay 10,000 pounds to the Vikings, but he began building his own fleet. Here we see the beginning of some of the factional rivalries as he's chasing down the Viking forces. One of the Ealdormans, who is the leader of the party that had just lost out, who was about to lose out, and it's possible that his power because of this, Alfrich, Ealdorman of Hampshire, allows the Vikings to escape.
That never letting your enemy escape never turns out bad at all.
Yeah. And from here it begins. You have in 994 Olaf Tryggvason and Svein Forkbeard return and ravage most of Essex all the way to Hampshire. So this is the eastern coast all the way to the middle of the country. And Athelred is forced to pay 16,000 pounds and provide all of the provisions for the Viking army. But in return, Olaf Tryggvason is baptized. So at least I got a soul for God in the exchange, even though I had to pay a lot of money and a bunch of shit got blown up actually. So this means a bunch of different payments. We've got 24,000 pounds to a Viking force in 1002, 36,000 pounds in 1007, 21,000 in 1014, and then in 1018, 72,000 and a further 10,500. So England's clearly a rich country that can shell out all of this money to Viking forces, which is why they're coming, and why eventually we'll see a certain dude decide, hey, I want to become king of England. Actually, a couple somebody, but yeah. Now, you might be thinking, what else are they getting out of this? They're just paying them to go away? No, they're actually using some of the Vikings that they pay off from destroying their land to help them defend against the next Vikings that come along. And this will be used to great effect. That was sarcasm. Later on. This also was popular, though you might think, oh, you're paying all this money. No, people.
Was that called? I think
people were fine with it.
Was that called the Dane Guild?
No. Yes, people call it that, but it's more. Bring me back. Sorry. It's more apt to call it Herajeld, which means army gold, than Danajeld, which would be Dane gold. But yeah, people have called it that. Oh shit! I wish I would have put down the date. Essentially, to ensure that the Vikings stopped having safe ports to attack England, not only did Athelred shore up locations, and we see that he transferred mints to where they made money to more defensible locations, and he made a very important marriage alliance that was very important for later on in English history. England's history has always been tied to Normandy, as it is a place where you can easily stage attack against England.
So he married a little someone called Emma?
Yes, he marries Emma of Normandy in order to secure secure an alliance with the Duke of Normandy and ensure that Vikings were no longer allowed to be in Norman ports, so that they can't have an easy place to attack. Um, uh, they didn't have a place that could easily attack England from, because Normandy is just across the channel and it's pretty easy to get to England from there. So it's nice to have an ally that won't Vikings rest up there. Maybe it will keep the Vikings away. And then one of the more controversial does is on the 13th of November, 1002, ordered the slaying of all Danish men in England, fearing that he was going to be overthrown by English, by some Danish people. The St. Bryce's Day Massacre.
Hello, new guest.
Hello. Hello?
Hello? Is your mic not working? Oh.
My mic is working. I'm wondering about RJ.
That's what I was talking to.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Okay, I guess I'll continue. A lot of the problems that were being faced by the English when they were fighting the Vikings during this time was ineffectiveness of the nobility in action, sometimes by the nobility, and treachery by the English nobility, trying to gain more power in this power politics between South in politics. In the next slide, we'll start talking about the end of Athelred, the ruin of him.
Before we do the name Forkbeard mean anything?
Yes, Svein Forkbeard. He was with Olaf Tryggvason at the Battle of Malden, and he's been raiding the English for a while.
Wow.
He'll show up later.
I mean, does his name? Do you have a fork in his beard, or is his beard like a fork, or what?
Oh yeah. Probably, yeah. My beard kind of does that too. I guess I can be fork beard. I don't know.
Yeah. I know that
they had very descriptive names. Olaf Tryggvason's son is named Harald Bluetooth, which, yes, where we get the word Bluetooth from for like connecting things, but probably because he had some rotted teeth. Nasty.
Yeah. Names back then and names now mean totally different things.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and when is St. Bryce Day? I don't think we celebrate that day anymore. I remember
13th of November, because that's when they did all the Danish people.
Okay, how come we don't celebrate that anymore?
I have no idea. Who knows? I don't even know who St. Bryce is.
Apparently, it's the saint of killing Danish people, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So next slide. There we go. So in 1009, I say that makes it sound small. No, this was massive. I think it was something like there was a bunch of ships. Okay, I'm sorry. There was a bunch of ships in 1009 with Thorkel, and he landed in England. England had just gone through some problems. The southern faction was now back in the ascendancy because in 1006, Ealdorman Aufhelm of Northumbria was killed, and his sons were blinded by another person that is very important for later because he is Irish dickbag. Oh, sorry. Edrich Streona. He was Ealdorman of Mercia. So you've got some problems that will show up later because now you've got a divided kingdom. Thorkel's invasion, however, was expected because there was massive militarization occurring in England. However, Edrich Streona helped cause some fracturing amongst this massive force that made this military able to fight off the Vikings in the coming year. 20 ships were lost when Edrich Streona and his family accused a guy whose family becomes important for later, Shield. He is the father of Godwin, who's the father of Harold Godwinson. They accuse him of unspecified offenses, and he gets mad, and he takes 20 ships, and he decides, you know what, I'm going to raid myself. I'm going to raid Sussex. So Thorkel arrives soon after. In 1010, he reaches the heart of Wessex and ravages there, and then he besieges Canterbury. Canterbury is a very big place for English religion, where the Archbishop of Canterbury is, and even back then, the Archbishop of Canterbury was seen as the most important churchman of his day. In the siege, the Archbishop was taken prisoner, and Thorkel's men. Thorkel tried his hardest to stop this, but his men kill the Archbishop of Canterbury. Can I? One.
What happened? I think we have some technical difficulties, folks.
Sorry, my family was being loud, and I was getting distracted. He tried to stop this, but the Archbishop of Canterbury was killed. This is a big no-no. This is bad. This is seen as a bad thing. Bad omen, essentially.
Killing the highest religious figure in the country.
Yeah. Thorkel is eventually bought off and actually comes to serve Athelred. However, as his Vikings that didn't want to stay in England leave, they're recruited by the dude on screen, Svein Forkbeard. And Svein Forkbeard is like, you know what? I'm going to come and try to raid England. But then he decides, you know what? Let's become king of England. He's already the king of Denmark, by the way. He's already king of Denmark.
Instead of bringing the treasure back to where I am, why just stay here and keep the treasure right here? Be in charge of it.
Yeah. And here is where the 1006 palace coup by Edrich Streona bites Athelred in the butt. Svein Forkbeard lands in the north and immediately accepts the surrender of various Ealdormen in the area and the Northumbrians. And he quickly moves south. The north will, for a while now, become the strong of the Danish forces as they try to take control of England because they're mad about the 1006 palace by Eadrich Streona. Canute marries his son to the daughter of Alfhelm, the murdered Ealdorman of Northumbria, Alfhifu of Northampton. She's important for later as well. Um Svein well,
sorry.
go ahead.
I said, and he also, did he marry his son, or did his son marry himself to the king's the king's now widow?
That's much later.
Okay.
Right now, he gains the support of the northern provinces through the marriage with Alfhifu of Northampton. He then quickly moves south and receives the surrender of the western provinces, and Athelred is forced to flee to Normandy. But this is a very short victory for Svein, because he dies almost immediately after, on the 3rd of February, 1014. The Danish army that had come with him elect his son Canute as king. The Anglo-Saxon nobility actually decides to bring back Athelred. Athelred essentially was like, you know what? I'm gonna give you all the reforms you want. Let's come on, please let me come back, please.
Be like, huh? A foreign conqueror or this guy? It's
yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. So Athelred comes back and promises reform. However, he immediately goes back into some tyrannical stuff. In 1015, he began punishing the noblemen of the north who had supported Svein Forkbeard. He kills 2 thanes called Sieferth and Morkar and seized their lands. Athelred's first son, Edmund Ironside, decided that it was his chance. Athelred was getting more and more sick, more close to death. He's now doing this, and Edmund Ironside, one of the elder sons of Athelred, also is in a similar situation to his uncle. He's the son of a non-consecrated woman. The sons of Normandy are going to have stronger claims to the throne. So he sees it as his. He heads north, and
but it's like one of the, I have a weaker claim, but I'm in the right place at the right time, and I got the army with me.
Yeah. He moves north, and of course the north was out a lot of things, and it keeps getting worse for the north. So he moves north. He marries the widow of one of the thanes that was killed, and immediately receives the submission of the north. The son that was gaining prominence, including helping negotiating the settlement in 1014 for Athelred to come back to the throne, was Emma's first son, Edward the Confessor. So this kind of Edmund Ironside sees his power weakening, and he thinks that he needs to seize whatever power he can get.
Yeah.
But Canute has also decided he's going to come back. And Edmund and Eadrich Streona, along with Thorkel, who's from earlier, raise armies to face Canute. On the 23rd of April, 1016, Athelred the Unready dies. And now we've got a success struggle between Canute and Edmund. Eadrich Streona switches sides. The bastard.
So, so why was he called Ironsides?
I do not remember. Let's see. Why isn't? Oh my god, that's stupid. Uh, Edward Ironside.
I could be wrong, but I doubt he had an iron implant inside of him.
No, he did not. Why? Please have something close, please. It was given to him because of his valor in resisting the Danish and led by Canute.
Yeah. He resisted, but nothing happened because he only had a year of power.
He was betrayed by Edrich Streona, who is a bastard and should die. He does die eventually. He actually is able to divide the kingdom with Canute. Canute rules the north and he rules the south, but he dies of unknown causes on the 30th of November. So now Canute controls the whole of the kingdom.
And then he, before he dies, or I guess after he dies, or before he dies, or somewhere in time thing, his kids get to married into the family of Scotland.
Yeah. His kids. I'm pretty sure his kids fled to Hungary. It's over here. It's over here. Edmund Ironside's sons were exiled and ended up in Hungary. Yeah, they go to Hungary and then they eventually go to Scotland and then yeah, it's a big whole thing.
Yeah, Hungary. That's way over there at this point.
Yeah. So the next slide, we're gonna talk about a bit about the society of this time.
Right.
So a very important figure for this coming time is Archbishop Wulfstan of York. He writes a lot of things about the feeling of the religious laity of the time and stuff like that. And he becomes very important King Canute's reign. He writes a lot about fearing the year 1000. He saw it as a sign of the coming Antichrist. So he thought it was going to be the end of the world in the year 1000, and it's not helping that we've got a bunch of Vikings swarming the kingdom and losing, and he wasn't really a fan of some of the social things happening. He saw the Vikings being able to take much stuff as they have because of a fundamental problem within English society. He saw the king was supposed to follow the precepts of God. He was a big fan of Edgar. Athelred's father, Edgar, of course, was a big supporter of the Benedictine reforms.
And what are those?
We talked about them last time, bringing back monasteries, forcing monasteries to have a strict code, stuff like that.
Okay.
Essentially, the church really loved those. Wulfstan saw Athelred as not doing enough about that. He saw the Vikings also as a consequence of the sins of the English people, the moral cowardice, and their debauchery. And he uses Gildas from way back in the beginning of our series, who essentially was saying, the Britons, we're losing all of this territory because we're not godly enough. The Anglo-Saxons are taking us over, and we deserve it because we're not godly enough. He's saying, if we don't get godly enough, the Anglo-Saxons, the English, are gonna go the way of the Britons. and the Vikings will be the new Anglo-Saxons. And while we have a bunch of problems going on, we also have some actual um cultural achievements. Many
Ooh.
of the wall paintings and sculptural programs are from this time of Athelred's reign and Canut's reign. Old English poetry, the majority in this time. On the screen is Beowulf, written during this time. Um, and also a bunch of different works that were used to explain the crisis of the time, expanding the literature of the English, and kind of solidifying the English language as uh, something that is literary instead of just Latin. Okay, so next we'll talk about the reign of Canute.
So, so what was how was the world ending right now? What was the big
They
apocalypse?
thought they thought that because it was the millennia, it's the year 1000
Oh,
after death, that
other
was like a big that meant that it was over.
oh,
That
their computers couldn't
Jesus was
handle it.
coming back.
The computers couldn't handle it like ours couldn't back in 2000.
Yeah, essentially, it's just like the scare in 2000.
Would that be Y1K then?
Yeah, Y1K.
Their epic. Their what's that word? Abacus.
Yeah, it just couldn't go. It just couldn't go. What? The year 1001? What are you talking about? But Canute's reign is a little bit weird because we don't have a lot of written sources. He didn't even write a lot of like royal decrees and stuff like that. He did wish to rule England as an English monarch, and he essentially had the government in the control of Wulfstan, who we were just talking about. Wulfstan essentially puts all of the stuff from this idea that the Viking, we got to make England great again. We got to get them back to godliness. Okay.
Speaking of great, is that how he got the name Canute the Great?
He gets it because of the map on the screen. He controlled all three of those kingdoms. So he's the great, the North Sea Empire. Early on in his reign, he portrays himself as a restorer of order and justice, essentially saying, "I'm bringing it back to Edgar. I'm bringing this." He's essentially, make America great again, but for England. And he's a foreigner, but uh, he divides the kingdom among some of his supporters, Eadrich Streona and Thorkel. However, early on, he purges a lot of the old nobility of England. This is the death of the old nobility of England. The old families of Mercia, Wessex, all of these areas, they're done for. They're purged. They're killed. And Eadrich Streona gets what he deserved. He early on in his reign, he brings in a lot of Scandinavians to rule, to become nobility, but he'll eventually uh, get rid of that in the 1030s as he brings in Englishmen to take over power. It will be a new generation, a new nobility, some big names: Earl Godwin, father of Harold Godwinson, and Leofrich. These people gain power. And the word ealdorman was being replaced by earl, so that's why today they're called earls instead of the alderman. Um,
So they went from an Old English word to a more like a Danish Viking word.
it's just ealdorman, but influenced by the Old Norse word jarl. So it just shortens it up and makes it earl in Old English. Now it's earl. Um, Canute wasn't in England all that much. He campaigned in Denmark a lot in 1019 to 1020 and in 1023. Uh, in the 1020s, he was always in Scandinavia trying to solidify his new empire. Um, and in 1027, he went to Rome. Uh, so he wasn't really in England much, but he solidified his position by being a generous benefactor to the church, being lavish even for a ruler, like just given vast quantities of wealth. And then he also marries Emma of Normandy in 1017, a year after he conquers England.
Oh,
He made
that's funny for a second. Hey, you know that deal you had with the old king to keep away from your ports? Yeah, I want to know that now. Like, he might be away from these ports.
yeah. He made an agreement with Emma that only one of her sons would rule after him. This is important for later because essentially Canute has different has two sons from two different parents. Um,
Just like the last king.
yeah, that happens a lot. He was also a big promoter of the cult of Edward, just like uh, Athelred was, possibly trying to, uh, you know, be like, "Hey, Athelred killed this guy. Come on, please." But of course, because we don't have many sources, this is all we can really say about it. We've got new nobility, new power brokers, and on the 12th of November, 1035, Kenneth dies. You remember that? You remember that agreement that he made with Emma? It's
Yeah,
immediately, uh, kicked in the rear
null and
by
void.
yeah. So he had two sons. Harold Harefoot was the son of his first wife. Harda was the son of Emma.
The son of the first wife.
Harda
That would that be the wife that his father may marry from the north of England or something like that?
yeah. Um. So Harda was supposed to take over England, but Harold, uh, along with his supporter Leofrich, essentially takes over north, and Harda uh, was ruling in the south. However, he was in Denmark because he's trying to become king of Denmark as well. And Harald takes the throne and forces Emma to flee to Normandy.
So again, it was the right place, right time thing. I'm here in this
Yeah,
area, so might as well take over.
yeah. Harald the Canute was actually supported by Godwin.
Oh,
While
Godwin,
Harefoot,
we're gonna hear that name next chapter. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, his son. And well, I mean, he's pretty important for Edward the Confessor's reign too. But eventually in 1040, Harda Canute comes back to England and because Harefoot dies, and he immediately digs up his brother's body and then desecrates it by throwing it into a bog. In
So,
revenge.
so I guess unlike Ethelred, he didn't make his brother a martyr.
No, he wasn't happy with his brother. He was also an adult. So all of this turmoil is important because the old order is gone and the new order is here to stay. So next slide. We actually see a massive amount of social mobility during this time, which kind of is weird because you're paying all this money to the Vikings. It just kind of shows how rich the Kingdom of England really was. A bunch of they're called Charles, which actually Charles, named Charles, comes from Charles in France, which ultimately comes from Carl, which means free. Charles are free men in England. They eventually gain statuses of thanes because there's so much land, and you start getting all this ostentatious like shows of wealth, all this clothing, and they're eating nice food like porpoise. Who thought porpoise? Whales, porpoises. Why? Why are you eating those? Stop it. Deer and fowl were also big foods that they used to show their wealth because, of course, they were the only ones that had time to hunt. Everybody else is farming. Oh, God. Oh. Woolstan.
Yeah, gotta have that wheat and more wheat.
Yeah. Wolfstan, being a staunch conservative, is like, stop it! No! He tries to reinstate the old social order by making rules to try to make it harder for these chorals to become thanes. It doesn't really work, but he tries.
Yeah, you remember the good old days in the 950 in the 1020s when when this was happening. Let's go back to the 1020 days.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you know how in Germany Reich means empire.
Yeah.
This word Reiche had a very similar meaning, power and powerful, in England. A lot of the kingdoms in England were called Reiches. West Saxona Reiche, the kingdom of of the West Saxons, for example. Reiche is the ancestor to the word rich, and it's during this time that we start seeing it shift from just meaning powerful to also being wealthy.
And then later it became the name for a little white grain.
But yeah, so that's why our word for wealth and stuff is the same as like when a German person talks about like the Reich, which I guess isn't very nice, but and you actually see a bunch of estates being broken up on the map. Shapwick used to be this pretty big manor, and it was eventually, and there were multiple towns within it, and it eventually got broken up into 6 different estates, and all of the towns that were on this big property got put together as like becomes the town of Shapwick today. And this happens across England during this time. And that is it.
That's that. This. So you said displays of wealth became more important. Like before, they were important before, but now they're like super important.
Originally, you showed your wealth through building stuff. When I say displays of wealth become more important, I'm talking about like the clothing you wear. Earlier on, it was like, don't do. How is conflict solved then? I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about the current? It does. The current conflict doesn't get solved for a while. That happens in the next chapter because a new conflict shows up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, and the next chapter is actually the last one.
Yep.
So essentially during this time the old nobility of England is gone. The new nobility is here to stay.
Oh, well, for now at least.
Yes, for now at least. Also, don't have a king full of warring factions. It will come to bite you in the ass. Another dude will have your throne.
What was that saying? A nation divided cannot stand, or kingdom divided, I guess at this point, a kingdom divided cannot stand.
Yeah. Honestly, this conflict between the North and South is still in effect to this day. Northerners are seen the same way we in the United States see Southerners, like backwards, funny accents, stuff like that. They're like, in order to advance in society as a northerner in England, you have to learn how to talk like us, and you've got to move to the South
Yeah,
and
but,
stuff like that.
you know, they may be the dumb Northern Englanders, but at least they're not Scottish.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's England's Hicktown, the north. But so technically, this conflict isn't solved. The north always gets less funding than the south, stuff like that. There's even a dude today saying that the north should secede from England.
Bring back Northumbria.
Essentially, yeah, he wants to call the new country Northumbria. So all power to him. Bring it back. Is that the only question?
I guess so.
Any other questions? Do you
I,
have any questions, Wendalia?
I guess. I guess. Can you give us a sneak peek of next month's epic grand finale?
It's the end of Anglo-Saxon England and the beginning of the more Kingdom of England. They even don't recognize, like, of course, recognize the Anglo-Saxon kings of England, but they don't recognize them in the numbering. Start the numbering after William the Conqueror. There's even a couple Edwards, but Edward the First isn't Edward. What? It would be Edward the Fourth.
Yeah.
If we counted the Anglo-Saxon kings, but no, his name is Edward the First.
Yeah.
So a
The
fundamental, massive change.
Yeah, the Confessor doesn't count. He's Confessor, but not Edward the First or Negative First.
Yeah, yeah. So, the beginning of Norman England, and then eventually Plantagenets.
Which we have talked about during our War of the Roses episode of last year.
Yeah, the end of the Plantagenets actually on that one. Beginning of the Tudors.
And then the Stuarts, then the Hanovers, and then the
Saxe-Coburg und Gotha, who eventually changed their name to Windsor because their name sounded too German.
Yeah, but that will have to wait till the end of March.
Yep.
And if you want to help out here, click on this code here, and do a little shopping to help us with a little upgrade, so we don't get kicked. So he don't get kicked off the stream all the time, like this year.
Well, I don't know if that's my internet or yours, but yeah.
But yeah, internet upgrades, computer upgrades. It only helps keep the stream going good.
Yeah. If only I had good internet.
Yeah. But all right. Everything else to say?
I did forget to say the Normans later on would comment on how much the English ate, because the English saw food also as a way of showing their. So they were like, Jesus Christ! It's like Europeans when they come to America and see fast food proportions, and they're like, Jesus Christ, how do you eat all this? The Normans did a very similar thing to the English.
Well, they were the. We'll get to that next. But yeah, we'll get to the more details of that next time.
Yeah.
I for now. Next week, join me next week as me and my friends we talking about the trilogy of the Christian Bale Batman 2000s. In my opinion, one of the last good DC movies that there has been before the current run.
Rip Heath Ledger.
But until then, never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. I'll see you next time.